Welcome everyone back to the School of Greatness podcast. We have the legendary Bob Proctor in the house. Good to see you, sir.
Good to be here, Lynn.
Super glad that you're here. You've been an inspiration to so many people since the 60s.
Yeah.
But really, I learned about you from The Secret, which I think a lot of people learned about
Sure.
you in the mainstream world. And we were just having a conversation off camera about how you almost missed being in The Secret. So I'm curious if you could tell that story, how you...
Yeah, it was an interesting story. I had a message on my phone, but the message was very garbled. I didn't delete it. I hit pound and just...
This is the recording box, voice message recorder.
And
yeah.
I was in an airport, and the message thing was full. So I phoned Gina. Gina Hayden's been my assistant. She's been with me for 33 years next week.
Wow.
Anyway, I said, Gina, my phone's full. Help me clean it up. I was in an airport. And so I said, I think this is a number. It sounds like an Aussie number. And I said, I think this is the person's name. Glenda. Was Rhonda Byrne made The Secret. Glenda was her sister. And she was doing the heavy lifting, I guess. So anyway, Gina, and they said something about a movie, but I said, oh, everything I'm telling you could be wrong. Well, she phoned me back in an hour, and she said, no, everything you were telling me is right. She said, there's a film crew they're doing this film from Australia, and they really wanted you in it, but they haven't been able to get a hold of you. And I thought, well, they couldn't have been trying too hard. You know, they phoned my phone. They found the number. And, but she said they're going back to Australia next week. They've been trying for a month to reach you. And they're shooting in Aspen all weekend. And Gina says, isn't that strange? Bob's doing a seminar in Aspen this weekend. I hadn't been to Aspen for 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
And so I just walked next door. I was working in a hotel. I just walked next door and walked into a little room. It wasn't much bigger than this. And they had cameras, and of course there was no air. And
you're sweating, the lights are hot.
Oh, it was terrible. I mean, you wouldn't have believed the way that it was set up. And they had 2 cameras, one that was rolling in, one fixed. And that's the story. So I answered a zillion questions for them. And they got a roll going, and I just started to talk. And they loved what I was saying because it was along what they were looking for. And so I opened my computer and I put a page of PowerPoints up that would trigger my mind on different things. So they had me in there for a couple hours. And I never heard anything from them then. I think that was in the summer until the next spring or something.
Really?
And I got a CD by FedEx. Now I get a lot of CDs sent to me, and I didn't back then. And
this is what, the 90s or 2000?
Well, I don't know. It was the year before it came out. It came out in 2006 or something.
Okay, so 2005.
So it was, And I put it on my coffee table, and I said to my wife, you know, we got to watch this thing. I didn't even know how to start
the CD
our own
player.
unit up.
Yeah.
And so anyway, she put it on, and I looked, and I thought, oh my God, this is gonna rock. It was because I saw the trailer, and it was the trailer that sold The Secret.
Wow.
And that thing just took off like a rocket. Yeah.
You guys were everywhere for years.
Yeah.
And you were one of the main people that they focused on a lot. I feel like I think I probably studied their subject more than anybody. Right.
And then they had me do a section. If you go into the CD, into the menu, there's a special Bob Proctor in there, where they had me do about 30 or 45 minutes. I did it in my office on a green screen. I just started talking. I didn't stop. And they never edited it.
Wow.
And they put that, so that's in there.
That's the bonus.
Yeah. And I think that's online for, I don't know, 2 or 3 million viewers on it. Yeah.
Wow. It's inspiring.
Yeah.
But
it was a great hit. Yeah.
And but you already had a successful business. You were teaching, doing seminars, workshops.
Well, I've been in the business since, that was in 2006. I'd been in the business since 1968.
Wow.
You know. I started in 1968 with Nightingale Conant.
Okay.
Yeah, in Chicago. Yeah.
Wow. And you didn't go to high school. You said you went 2 months to high school.
I went to high school for 2 months, yeah. They kicked me out.
Why did they kick you out?
Well, I was useless. I was going nowhere, doing nothing. I mean, I was a useless human being, really. I had, the word goal, I would think of a hockey game or a soccer game. It was not something a person would work toward. I had been in and out of the Navy and in and out of factories and
Wow.
working in bars. I mean, I was going nowhere. And I was 26 when I woke up. But prior to that, nothing was happening. I think I'm very effective at what I do because I always figured if this worked for me, it would work for anybody. I was such a loser, and my world changed so dramatically that I've never ceased to be fascinated with what happened to me. And I want it to happen to other people. And it can.
Why do you think you were such a loser? Because I feel like we were brothers then. 'Cause
Well,
I felt like,
I've thought about that many times.
Yeah.
I was born during the Depression. I've been around a long time. I'll be 85 next week.
wow.
So I was born during the Depression, and the Second World War broke out. I was just 5, 6 years old. My dad went overseas, so I never really knew my dad. I had a brother and sister older and brother younger, so I was in the middle. And I had my grandmother sort of like buddied up with my brother, and my mother with my sister, and I felt like I was sort of lost. You know?
And your dad was gone.
Yeah. Well, there was no father. I mean, he'd come home after the war and then he was gone again. So I didn't have any real direction as a kid. And I was very thin. I was always underweight. I guess I had very low self-esteem. I knew nothing about who I was. Nobody ever taught me anything about that. See, in those days, I mean, things were tough for everybody. You know, during the war and during the Depression, your parents, I guess my mother was happy just to be able to feed us and put a roof over our
Survive,
head.
yeah.
Yeah. And now, mind you, she was really a phenomenal woman because she did everything on her own and she made it happen. So my brother and sister and I talk about her. We always say, God bless Mother, because she kept going, you know.
Yeah.
And so we look back and I think we had good gene there. You know?
Wow. What was the biggest lesson your mom taught you?
I think the biggest lesson she taught me was to be generous. She was a very generous person. I give a lot of money away. I give a lot. I'm considered a very generous person. And I think I learned it from her. I remember we were kids and there was a family on the street over from ours. I lived in the Beaches area in Toronto. And in the winter it was very cold and we heated the house with coal. And they didn't have any coal, so their house was cold.
Right.
And I told my mother about it, and I remember she sent me to the corner with a $20 bill
It's a lot of money
to
then.
get 2 tens. It was a hell of a lot of money.
Right.
And she gave me $10 to take to the other family to buy a ton of coal.
Wow.
She didn't even know them. And that stuck in my head. Well, I'm still talking about it 65 years, 75 years later, yeah.
She was very generous, even when she had
and
very
I think that was something that she instilled in me. Probably in all my brother and sister as well, you know.
Did she end up kind of making it or
Well,
earning
no,
more
well,
money,
she
or-
did. I mean, she kept things going.
Yeah.
She didn't really understand the rules for success or winning or anything. Hers was probably more survival.
Yeah, of course.
And she did that. So she did a great job with what she had, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does the power of generosity do for the other person and do for you, the giver?
Well, you know, Jane Wilhite puts it very well. She runs Psi seminars in California. She says, you willingly give and graciously receive. And givers gain.
Ooh.
And so I think the giver enjoys more than the receiver.
Always, right?
Yeah.
When you're in
Yeah.
service to other people,
Yeah.
when you're in service to a charity or
Yeah.
people that maybe have less than you in the moment, it always feels amazing.
Well, like our company builds schools in Africa.
Yeah.
And we built a lot of them.
Yeah,
She
we
was
built
Cynthia
ourselves
Kersey.
too.
Do you know
Yeah.
Cynthia Kersey? You should interview her. She's
Okay.
a fascinating woman. She builds the schools over there, her foundation. And I met her and I started to support what she does. In fact, my son's over there right now with his wife.
Wow.
And every summer, Cynthia takes a group over with her. And we built probably hundreds of schools over there.
Yeah.
But they give them everything, not just the schools, nutritious food and
Hygiene, and
yes,
water, and
yeah,
everything.
they mixed the whole thing. There was a lot of schools being built, but they wouldn't last because there was nothing going with it.
Yeah.
And I'm convinced that giving is one of the basic rules of success.
Why?
Well, Emerson said that cause and effect was the law of laws. Action and reaction are equal and opposite. So it's in harmony with the laws of the universe. And I believe this whole universe operates in a very orderly way. I'm very tuned into the laws of the universe. And I think that's why, it's in harmony with God's laws.
Yeah. Now you said, I think at 26 or 27, that's when you started to wake up, or you started to have some type of awareness about yourself, the world, the universe, life. What happened when you started to wake up?
It was dramatic what happened. I was on the fire department in a suburb of Toronto, and there was a man near there who became a friend of mine. He was a friend of a lot of people. I just was fortunate enough to meet him, Ray Stanford. He gave me a copy of Think and Grow Rich, and he said, Bob, did you ever read anything? And I said, no, I can't read. Now, that wasn't true. I could. I found out I read about as well as most people. I think the average person reads at about a grade 7 level. And they learn to read by the time grade 7, and then they never improve upon it from that point on. But he said, if you do exactly what I tell you and read this book every day, you can have anything you want. Well, I was unhappy, I was sick, I was broke, and you can have anything you want. I thought it was nonsense. But he said something else. He said, listen, my way's working, yours isn't. He was happy, healthy, and wealthy. The guy always had money on him. And big, healthy guy. And he said, you're unhappy, sick, and broke. So he said, I must know something you don't know. Why the hell don't you do what I tell you? Well, I think something clicked. Now, people had tried to reach me. I was 26 since I was a kid, and none of them ever did. And so I started to do what he suggested. And he said, what do you really want? Well, all I wanted was some money. I was earning $4,000 a year at the time, and I owed $6,000. If I had paid everything I earned for 18 months, I would have just broken even.
Wow.
It was an impossible situation. And I was just looking at what was. I couldn't see beyond that, so that's what made it impossible. And he said, listen, write what you want on a card. Now, I got a gold card in my pocket. I've carried one ever since. He said, write what you want on the card. You can have anything you want. So he said, what do you really want? And I said, I want some money. I figured if I had enough money, all my problems would go away. Everybody, I was getting the phone, where's the money? They were always after me, people I owed money to. So I wrote that I wanted to have $25,000. And now, if I had got together all the people I know, or knew at that time, and put all their money together, we wouldn't have come up with $25,000. We probably wouldn't have come up with $1,000. It was an enormous amount of money. It was nuts. So I wrote that in the card. He says, you got to read it every day. And he'd keep saying, did you read it? Did you read it? So he got me reading it. And I
reading the book or reading the card?
No, read the gold card.
The card.
Read the gold
$25,000.
Just a gold card. Read the gold card. I'm so happy and grateful now that I have $25,000. And I learned something very important from it. All I thought about prior to that was debt. Because people are always phoning me, when are you going to pay me? If you think about debt, you're going to be in debt forever.
Yeah.
You become what you think about. Well, this gold card got me thinking about earning money. I never thought of earning money before. I thought about debt all the time. And it got me thinking of earning money. So I started to hear people talking about earning money. And because I heard them talking about it got me thinking about it. And some guy said, there's good money cleaning floors. I said, I'm not proud, I'll clean floors. I was prepared to do anything. I wanted to earn this money. I wanted to earn money. So I started to clean one office. And by the end of the year, I was earning $14,500 a month.
What?
I was on the fire department. The chief was only earning $11,500 a year.
Wow.
I was earning $14,500. This was in a year from the start. I started to clean one office. It was Canada Starch. I'd wash the floor twice a month, $15 a time. I got $30. Then I got another one, Kirby's Construction. I got $65 a month. Well, do you know, in less than 5 years, I was cleaning offices in Toronto, Montreal, Boston, Cleveland, Atlanta, London, England. I mean, think going like a rocket. And I was listening to Earl Nightingale's recordings. I was listening to, or reading Think and Grow Rich. And every cleaner, I had them studying the same stuff I was studying. Well, none of us knew much about cleaning floors. We just did a good job. We cleaned. But if somebody asked me what I was doing, I'd say I was cleaning offices. It was almost incidental to what I was doing. I could have been selling siding for houses.
Didn't matter.
It was what I was studying, what I was doing with it. I was getting the other people to study it. And I was very irresponsible. I was earning all this money. I was earning well over $1 million a year. I was living in London. I'd go down to the Playboy Club on Park Lane, play roulette. I didn't even care if I lost, and I hardly ever did. I almost always won. I seemed to know where the money was. And one day I thought, you know, this isn't very responsible. I don't know what the hell triggered it in my mind. And I thought, how did this happen? And I didn't know. I didn't know how my life had changed so dramatically, but it had changed dramatically, and in a short time. I'd been raised to believe if you're going to earn a lot of money, you're going to be really smart. I knew I wasn't very smart. I was earning a lot of money, so I thought that's not true. I was raised to believe if you're going to get a good job, you've got to go to school. Well, I hadn't gone to school. I didn't have a good job. I owned the whole company.
Right.
So I thought, that's not true. So I started to wonder about all the things that I believed. Are they true? They're not true. And so then I had to know what happened, and I couldn't find out. It took me 9.5 years to figure out what I actually did.
How you got to where you were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were talking prior to starting this about mentors. I believe they're essential in life. And as I look back, I have been fortunate enough to study with some absolutely brilliant people. I mean, giants. And any success I've enjoyed is because I've had great direction.
Wow.
And starting with the first one, he says, do exactly what I tell you until you find out I'm lying or I don't know what I'm talking about. So that's sort of a rule I followed. When I pick a person that I'm going to choose as a mentor, I do exactly what they tell me until I find out they're lying or they don't know what they're talking about. And they don't lie, and they do know what they're talking about. So I've had great instruction in my life. And it works.
Wow. Who's the most memorable mentor for you?
Well, Ray Stanford, first of all, but they're all very all very important.
Different ways.
Earl Nightingale, huge. I started to study his recordings, and then I wanted to work with him. And I saw where he had distributors, and so I became a distributor. And I left my business. I was prepared to pay them to let me work there. I wanted to work with him because I knew if I could work with him, I could watch him, you know. And I'd see what he did, and I'd get to think what he's thinking, because he was a giant in my mind. I mean, Earl Nightingale and Lloyd Conant literally started personal development as we know it today in recorded fashion. And he started on this Strangest Secret record. So he was really huge. But I studied with Bill Gove, who was a great speaker, Val Vanderwall, Dr. Roeder. I've had just phenomenal mentors. Most of them people, you wouldn't really recognize their names, but they were giants at what they did.
Do you remember having big dreams as a kid? Or did you just always think you would amount to nothing, you were a loser? And
I never had any dreams when I was a kid. I think the area I grew up in, we were so poor, things were so rough. But you got to remember, that was during the Great Depression in the 30s. I mean, there's not too many people alive that lived through that anymore. And we didn't have dreams. We just, get by was the deal.
Right.
Now, when I started to read Think and Grow Rich, I was 26. That's when I started to really dream. And
What do you think is the most powerful principle in the book? Obviously, there's a lot of them. For you, what's the thing that stood out?
There's a number of them, but imagination is, and I had learned, see, I was studying many things at the same time. Our higher faculties, school teaches nothing about them. Many seminars don't teach you much about them. We talk about you becoming what you think about, but you've got to go further than that. Most people live through their senses because we're programmed to do that. Literally, we're programmed genetically and then environmentally to go by what we hear, see, smell, taste, touch. But I have a dog at home that can hear, see, smell, taste, touch. All animal life operates through senses. We've been created in God's image. We have these higher faculties. We are creative beings, literally. We have perception, the will, reason, imagination, memory, and intuition. They're the faculties that make us separate from everything else. Like, all the other little creatures on the planet are completely at home in their environment. We're the only creature that's totally disoriented in their environment. And that's because we've been given the faculties to create our own environment.
Right.
But we've never been taught how to use them. Now, we teach that in our company. We teach how to develop your perception, the will. You change your perception, you change your life.
Yeah.
And the will. When John Kennedy asked Dr. Wernher von Braun what it would take to build a rocket that would carry a person to the moon, bring him back safely to Earth, von Braun said, he answered him in 5 words. He said, the will to do it. Now, many people would hear that and don't really understand what he said. The ability to hold that picture on the screen of your mind and nothing else, because the will is what gives you the ability to concentrate. Energy flows to and through you. Through concentration, you increase the amplitude of vibration when the energy leaves you. That's how absentee healing's done, through the will. A practitioner will hold the idea, and they'll have the subject relax, be very quiet. They transfer that thought right into the person's subjective mind. And so it affects the body.
Yeah.
Well, the will is very important. So we've got to understand these things, Intuition. I can walk by a person and, I could tell, as soon as I walk in the room, I know exactly what you're like. You operate, you probably studied this, but you operate from almost evenly between the right and left hemisphere of your brain. You've got an interesting mix in your personality.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that, but,
sure.
I could feel that. You're almost an even balance between the two. And, as I say that, I'm trying to figure you're more one than the other, and I don't think you are. Well, your intuition will do that. Because your intuition is a mental faculty that picks up vibration and translates it in your mind. It's through intuition that you get answers to your questions. Like you asked a question, the opposite side of question is an answer. It's the equal and opposite side. So our answer comes with our question, but we're not tuned in to pick it up, Like every question is an answer. Well, the imagination, of course, it's everything.
Yeah.
So you get these higher faculties and you get using them, and I started to learn how to use these. And I started to see that we've got so much going for us that we never hear about. School doesn't teach us. Our parents don't teach us. You go to work for a company, they don't teach you. So the odds of learning it are really slim, And it's the reason there's so few people that really are successful in life. There's all kinds of material around in success. My goodness, there's more around today than there's ever been.
Yeah.
Self-help books are, top of the bestsellers list.
They're crushing, yeah.
In 1968, when I first started to study this, you had Norman Vincent Peale's Power of Positive Thinking, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Carnegie. It was a few books, Think and Grow Rich, but there weren't that many. Today, there's thousands of them.
Yeah, people need it because they don't know how to use the tools that we have.
But they don't know how to use the information that's in the books.
Right. How do we... So what are these 5 faculties again, you said?
You have perception.
Yeah.
Intuition. The will. Reason.
Reason.
Yeah. Imagination. There's 6. And memory.